Quarantine day 6, and we're all quietly reading improving books, doing crafts with the 3 people we are allowed to see till summer, wondering if a single cough means imminent death, thinking almost constantly about sex. I suddenly understand Jane Austen novels much better. Victorian literature suddenly makes a lot more sense these days. Generally, I love raccoons, but this looks like an enemy from a Souls game. We can't get rid of slavery, the economy will collapse. We can't get rid of child labor, the economy will collapse. We can't have 8-hour workdays, the economy will collapse. What? The workers want 2 days off a week. Don't they know the economy will collapse? Basically, if a capitalist says the economy will collapse because of a reform that will help workers, you don't need to believe them. Also, it's gonna collapse anyway. That's what it does under capitalism. You've heard of humans being severely injured to reveal mechanical insides. Now get ready for a far more horrifying alternative. Machines and technology being damaged to reveal meaty, bloody insides. The most implausible thing about superhero movies is that these guys make their own suits. Like, seriously, those toxic chemicals did not give you the ability to sew stretch knits. Do you even own a serger? I feel like there's this little secret place in the middle of some seedy New York business neighborhood. Back room. Doesn't even have a sign on the door, but within 3 days of using their powers in public or starting a pattern of vigilantism, every budding superhero or supervillain gets discreetly handed a scrap of paper with that address written on it. Inside there's this little tea table with 3 chairs. WOOD equals STOVE, mini fridge, work table, sewing machines, bolts, and bolts of stretch fabrics, and maybe some Kevlar, and 2 middle-aged women with matching wedding rings and sketchbooks. And they invite you to sit down and give you tea and cookies and start making sketches of what you want your costume to look like, and you get measured and told to come back in a week, and there's your costume waiting for you. The first one is free. They tell you the price of subsequent ones, and it's based on what you can afford. You have no idea how they found out about your financial situation. You try it on, and it fits perfectly, and you have no idea how they managed that without measuring you a whole lot more thoroughly than they did. They ask you to pose for a picture with them. For their album, they say, the camera is old, big, the sort film camera artists hunt down at antique stores and pay thousands for, and they come pose on either side of you, and one of them clicks the camera remotely by way of one of those squeeze things on a cable that you've seen depicted from olden times. That one, the tall one, you think, though she isn't really, thin and reminiscent of a Greek marble statue, pulls the glass plate from the camera and scurries off to the basement, while the other one, shorter, round, all smiles, her shiny black hair pulled up into a bun, brings out a photo album to show you their work. Inside it is everyone. Superheroes, supervillains, household names, and people you don't recognize. She flips through pages at random, telling you little bits about the guy in the purple spangly costume, the lady in red and black, the mysterious cloaked figure whose mask reveals one eye. As she pages back, the costumes start looking really convincingly retro, and her descriptions start having references to the space race, the Depression, the Great War. The other lady comes up, holding your picture. You're sort of surprised to find it's in color, and then you realize all the others were too, even the earliest ones. There you are, and you look like a superhero. You look down at yourself and feel like a superhero. You stand up straighter, and the costume suddenly fits a tiny bit better, and they both smile proudly. The next time you come in, it's because the person who's probably going to be your nemesis has shredded your costume. You bring the agreed upon price, and you bake cupcakes to share with them. There's a third woman there, and you don't recognize her, but the way she moves is familiar somehow, and the air seems to sparkle around her, on the edge of frost, or the edge of flame. She's carrying a wrapped brown paper package in her arms, and she smiles at you, and moves to depart. You offer her a cupcake for the road. The 2 seamstresses go into transports of delight over the cupcakes. You drink tea and eat cookies and a piece of a pie someone brought around yesterday. They examine your costume and suggest a layer of Kevlar around the shoulders and torso since you're facing off with someone who uses claws. They ask you how the costume has worked, contemplate small design changes, make sketches. They tell you a story about their second wedding that has you falling off the chair in tears, laughing so hard your stomach hurts. They were married in 1906, they say twice. They took turns being the man. They joke about how 2 one-ring ceremonies make 1 2-ring ceremony and figure that they each had 1 wedding because it only counted when they were the bride. They point you at 3 pictures on the wall. A short round man with an impressive beard grins next to a taller white gowned goddess. A thin man in top hat and tails looks adoringly down at a round and beaming bride. 2 women, in their wedding dresses, clasp each other close and smile dazzlingly at the camera. The other 2 pictures show the sanctuaries of different churches. This one was clearly taken in this room. There's a card next to what's left of the pie. Elaborate silver curlicues on white, and it originally said happy 10th anniversary. Only someone has taken a Sharpie and shoehorned in an extra 1. So it says happy 110th. The tall one follows your gaze, tells you morning wedding and evening wedding, same day. She picks up the card and said sit upright. You can see the name signed inside. Magneto. You notice that scattered on their paperwork desk are many more envelopes and cards, and are glad you decided to bring the cupcakes. When you pick up your costume the next time, it's wrapped up in paper and string. You don't need to try it on. There's no way it won't be perfect. You drink tea, eat candies like your grandmother used to make when you were small, talk about your nights out superheroing, and your nemesis, and your calculus homework, and how today's economy compares with the later years of the Depression. When you leave, you meet a man in the alleyway. He's big and he radiates danger, but his eyes shift from you to the package in your arms, and he nods slightly and moves past you. You're not the slightest bit surprised when he goes into the same door you came out of. The next time you visit, there's nothing wrong with your costume, but you think it might be wise to have a spare. And also, you want to thank them for the Kevlar. You bring artisan sodas, the kind you buy in glass bottles, and they give you stir fry, cooked on the wood-burning stove in a wok that looks a century old. There's no way they could possibly know that your day job cut your hours, but they give you a discount that suits you perfectly. Halfway through dinner, a cinder block of a man comes in the door, and the shorter lady brings up an antique-looking bottle of liquor to pour into his tea. You catch a whiff, and it makes your eyes water. The tall one sees your face and grins and says, "Prohibition." You're not sure whether the liquor is that old or whether they've got a still down in the basement with their photography darkroom. Either seems completely plausible. The 4 of you have a rousing conversation about the merits of various beverages over dinner, and then you leave him to do business with the seamstresses. It's almost a year later, and you're on your 5th costume when you see the gangly teenager chase off a trio of would-be purse snatchers with a grace of movement that can only be called superhuman. You take pen and paper from one of your multitude of convenient hidden pockets and scribble down an address. With your own power and the advantage of practice, it's easy to catch up with her and the work of an instant to slip the paper into her hand. A week or so later, you're drinking tea and comparing Supreme Court justices past and present when she comes into the shop and her brow furrows a bit, like she remembers you but can't figure out from where. The ladies welcome her and you push the tray of cookies towards her and head out the door. In the alleyway you meet that same giant menacing man you've seen once before. He's got a bouquet of flowers in one hand, the banner saying happy anniversary, and a brown paper bag in the other. You nod to him and he offers you a cupcake. The year is 2023. Mary Kondo holds JFF Bezos by the skin on the back of his neck in front of a public gathering. Does this one spark joy? She shouts at the restless audience. They boo in response. She snaps his spine like 0.5mm mechanical pencil lead and throws his lifeless corpse to the crowd. They cheer in response. Please tell me this is our timeline. The crumb. The most intense photo I've ever seen. Imagine all of the insufferable Oscar bait quarantine movies that are gonna come out in a few years about a husband and wife forced to stay home together and slowly learn to actually love and appreciate their spouse. One of the important scenes will be where husband watches wife eat an entire can of olives and goes, I didn't know you liked olives. And she's like, yeah, I love them. Insert obnoxious slurping eating noises to prove she is a relatable female character. And then cue dramatic melancholy music while he sits and thinks about how his job is actually meaningless in the face of the fact that it's prevented him from learning more about the woman he married all those years ago. There's a bunch of scenes where they look pensively at each other from the doorway. They start off quarantined sitting on chairs on opposite sides of the living room. As the days progress, they move closer and closer. By the end of the movie, they are next to each other on a love seat. It's about two upper middle class white heterosexuals. He works at a bank, and she runs an Etsy shop, making tiny idly jewelry. Their neighbor is an elderly likable black man who offers them sage advice talking over the fence of their backyards. He, of course, eventually dies of the virus, leaving his two neighbors to learn and grow from the experience and to treasure what really matters in life. It makes $10 bazillion, and several highbrow movie critics talk breathlessly about how it accurately and beautifully handled the emotional and social struggle of life during the pandemic. Husband is played by like Leonardo DiCaprio or something. Wife is a slim blonde actress who is 20 years younger than him, even though in the movie their characters somehow went to high school together. Black neighbor killed off for character development is played by Morgan Freeman. The movie is touted as one of the most important films of the decade. Yep, that's the movie. Imo. There also will be elderly heroic Asian woman, owner of a grocery store, speaking bad English, suffering, but performing heroic acts for the community. Even the whole racist, who will eventually reform. Cute tears. Background gay character that's seen for about a minute and has the critics shouting about how it's such a progressive film. I've never proofread a single thing I've written in my life. As soon the words are outside my brain, I no longer recognize them as mine, and I want nothing more to do with them. I write bastard sentences with my evil little hands, and I make them everyone else's problem. Well, that's a goddamn mood. I was a professional juggler for like 5 years, and all of my friends politely pretend it never happened. Sometimes I will be holding 3 or more similarly sized objects, and they will all shoot me the kind of warning glances, typically reserved for cats, who are about to swipe a fresh and crispy fish stick from a small child's hand. I gaze wistfully at a basket of apples, and they all think, don't you fking dare, so hard that I take psychic damage. Me, watching the Olympics. Where's Mario and Sonic? Me watching the 2020 Olympics. Where's the Olympics? Happiness will come to you. When though? When you least expect it. Probably late March. Rare blog for happiness to come for you in late March. March. Do not blow this for us. That bench turned into a snow sofa. This was the perfect opportunity to say snaufer, and you missed it. I regret everything. Does anyone remember when Daniel Handler, author of a series of unfortunate events, was asked when his books take place, and he answered the year of the rat? Makes sense, since 2020 is the year of the rat, and this year so far has been a series of unfortunate events. How is he not catching fire? Because the monitor trusts him. Did you even watch the fucking episode?